and welcome to Pair Reflections, a proud member of the Duff Network, where we reflect on Marlborough's most Christmassy work as it releases. I'm Ruben Morehouse,
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
and we are coming at you live in the Discord, starting Twitter 22 minutes late. If you want to be able to join our live episode recordings and listen to us finalize our notes and discussion questions while jamming out to some lo-fi beats, join the Discord, because that's the only place you can do it.
Yep. While you're thinking about that, think about joining the Doof Patreon, because the patrons are who votes in the fan art contest, which is, I mean, by the time you're listening to this, it's
That'll be out.
closed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The
You
vote
get a,
will be coming soon. So prepare
yeah.
to vote if you're a patron. If not, prepare to do nothing, contribute nothing to society. I guess that's fine too.
Yeah. Oh, these freeloading non-patrons.
Yeah, got them. But anyway, should we get on with the chapters, Elliot? We've got a couple of real A tier chapters this week here.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
No, my little pattern matchy brain was very excited that we got like our triple double here, to round out the
yeah.
trio.
Yeah, for sure. Getting our Lucy chapters is great. But yeah, let's get into it. 1915 starts with Lucy chatting to her new dad, Sebastian Harless, who is helping her with some word choices on a contract.
I mean, Jasmine has done worse. Like he's better than Paul.
Yep, true.
Yeah. No, I do love like because we started seeing Sebastian in Lucy's POV, and at first I was like, oh, she doesn't seem to think he's like as sad and pathetic as he really came out in Avery's. And I just pulled that trigger a bit early because eventually she stops to like describe his appearance, and it's just like everyone just thinks this guy is he's just like loser with a capital L. Like everyone like, oh, what a sad sack.
Yeah, he seems so nice though. I saw on the Reddit he was compared to what's his face, the lawyer from Scrubs. What's his name? Ted, I
Yeah,
think.
Ted. Yeah.
Was what I
Oh,
saw
that's
him
good.
compared to on the subreddit, which I thought was very funny. And so tragic. I mean, like, surely he can't be that much of a sad sack, but everyone does keep describing him that way, so maybe.
And his actions kind of align with it. Not so much in this chapter. He's pretty good here,
Mm.
but I remember in the one where he first appeared in Avery's like 3 weeks ago, he was just like, I don't have any friends or family for Christmas. Like, just
Yeah, but he is competent. That's the
yeah,
difference, I think. He
yeah,
is
yeah.
competent and nice. But yes, he is nice. But yeah, as I kind of joked about in the summary, he definitely, the Lucy father figure danger alarm definitely rang in this chapter.
I mean, it's funny. I kind of vibe with the idea of him being the one to beat it, because it's like, um, like this is Lucy trying to move away from fighting just with violence and using words and stuff, and the idea of like this sad sack guy helping her there being the one who finally kind of actually sticks the landing in terms of
Yeah,
staying in her life. Just it
yeah.
kind of feels right in a weird way.
No, I agree. It does kind of work, doesn't it? Although, given that Clark Hall next chapter, like he's gone against Musser now somewhat, even though he tried to avoid doing that. I don't know. There might be some retribution coming. We'll have to see.
Clark Hall gives me the vibe of like that's the sort of law firm where it's like, oh, you beat us. Would you like a job offer? Like just that kind of
Yeah, but
like zero morality law firm where it's like they'll just recruit him.
yeah, I
Um,
meant more from Musser's side. But yeah, that's a good
yeah,
point.
fair.
Maybe not. Um,
Um, uh, so just also like Sebastian and Lucy. I know I said this when the idea came up a few weeks ago, but he's just such a fun person to put on the other side of Lucy too, because he's this sad sack, whereas Lucy's like
mm,
this fiery, like young person. Like they're just the complete opposites in such fun ways, and it's like it feels like it'd be good for him. And then also like, how often is he going to get a 14-year-old student who's like really excited about the fact that he knows how to do like annotation PDF software?
mhm.
Like there's that bit where he like turns on her ability to annotate the PDFs, and she's like, "Wow, that's really cool." And I was like, "No, it isn't." Fucking like Lucy's nerd side really came out in that moment. It was just like, how often is Sebastian going to run into a student who's that keen to learn?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very fun that Lucy is such a dweeb. It works perfectly. Um, so yeah, Lucy here picks up on the word "wed" that's been dropped, which, in fairness, is interesting. Yeah, Sebastian explains why this word was picked, and it all seems legit. But then Lucy's comment that the universe is giving her marriage
Yeah.
foreshadowing is legit. Like, what do we think's going on here?
Um, yeah, I feel like we talked about this again when Lucy brought this up against that Winter Fairy like 3 or 4 weeks ago, where she tossed the idea of like, yeah, I'll marry another established practitioner who'll fight alongside me to make change, blah blah blah. And it was a bit like, I don't, what are we doing with this? Like, this
Can,
doesn't feel like something where it's gonna be like, and then then Lucy married a practitioner. Like that just there's got to be an extra step in there for that to feel like it makes sense, and I can't really see what it is. I
I,
suppose like this chapter kind of opens up the idea of maybe viewing that idea less like literally. Like we're discussing how the term wed more is symbolic of mutually like beneficial partnerships that are kind of
mm,
unbreakable and that sort of thing. So like maybe all this stuff with like Lucy marrying into practitioner society is less like she's going to marry a practitioner and more like a part of her journey will be sort of getting into this society to some degree to change it for the better. Like in the same way you hear about like Booker becoming a politician, right? To do good change.
mm,
So the idea that almost more jumps to my mind is, people like Milo Sonjate who get adopted into a family.
mm.
Like, I feel like conceptually, the way we talk about wedding in this chapter, that sort of more fits the bill. Like Lucy sort of taking the name of a practitioner family, joining them, and helping direct them towards change feels more like something I could see happening than like her just straight up
Her
marrying
getting
some
married.
dude. Yeah.
Well, let's. I know this is a bit unorthodox, but I kind of want to pull out a pale prediction that we got because I think it is potentially relevant. And it's your one, the one that you pulled out
Yeah.
from Giles Al. I kind of, we're jumping around in our notes, but whatever. So Giles Al's prediction. I mean, you picked it out? Do you want to read it out? I
Um,
guess I can tie it in.
yeah. To TLDR it, Jalzal predicts that Raquel's fiance is Leos, specifically Timon Leos is their primary guess.
Mm.
Which is obviously like the reason I love that prediction is because that definitely plays to the drama of like he and Lucy have had a bit of a thing, and we've heard that they're dangerous, but they seem cool. But yeah, anyway, I think this would be a very fun reveal.
Yeah, but then maybe the way that this drama eventuates is like, I don't know, Lucy also offering to marry Diamond or something as like a counter to Musser. I don't know exactly how this would work. It sounds a bit insane,
Yeah,
but
that,
I could see it being kind of fun.
there's like this is one of those like step one, step two, dot 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 profit. Like there's some missing steps
Yeah,
in
yeah,
here
yeah.
before we before that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really vibing with this idea that like the universe was being all symbolical and shit, and like the wedding thing is a little bit more metaphorical than just Lucy actually arranged marrying a
Mm,
practitioner. But
mm,
I mean, I guess we'll see.
yeah.
In general, I just thought it was really funny that it was like because this whole segment is essentially an analysis of like the reason we chose the word wed is because it has these connotations and like is associated with these sorts of things, and like it was just kind of Wildbow running the audience through the process he goes through like hundreds of times a week, like between the arc titles, story titles, like just things in conversations. Wildbow makes these sorts of decisions 100 times a week, and he's very good at it. Like the fandom's called that out a lot in the past, and it was very funny getting this like Wildbow sort of giving the audience this lesson the same way Sebastian's giving it to Lucy.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's fun. I don't know. I wonder if it's going to turn into something, or if this is the this feels like the second beat of three for it, though, right? Like it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, her implement ritual has been referenced both times. As like that also
Mm,
included the wedding, and
mm,
that one I remember we called it out at the time as weird because that was in the wedding a practitioner who she decided
yes, yes.
she loved. So like, yeah, but it's definitely like that was so long ago that it's sort of like, yeah, okay, now we've hit the 1-2 sort of refresh beats. Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see. It is interesting because this just doesn't map to anything I would have seen happening with Lucy's arc, so I have no idea where it's going, and
Yeah.
that's
No,
so
I know.
exciting.
That's why it's so cool because it's so out of left field. I don't know. I'm really looking forward to whatever this is going to be.
Yeah,
But yeah. So yeah, they get interrupted by a winter fae. Lucy kind of slights them and ends up paying the price.
yeah.
Her room gets exploded.
I'm just gonna throw a hot take out there. I don't like this guy. I don't like this Winter Fairy guy.
What? No
just
way.
just saying. Um, he seems like kind of a jerk.
I mean, yeah. No shit. Yeah, no, it was kind of funny. I mean, Guillermo comes in for parts of this and like it calls him by his name, and that to me was just like, oh yeah, this Fae is like actually somebody. Like that feels so weird to me because they feel that when the Fae shows up, the Winter Fae just feel like a force of nature. You kind of forget that they actually are like characters.
Individuals, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the thing that really makes your blood boil as this is going on is like the lesson that the hunt is really instilled in everyone, especially Lucy at this point, is that like, we don't fight. Like there's moments where she gets the upper hand because the octopus explosion, or like I think there's a few others, and every single time she has to be like, but I can't actually fight him because then things get
Worse.
worse.
Yeah.
So she has to like while he's actively sort of trying to kill her, she like gets to dodge his attacks but can't use any advantage. And it just it's blood boiling. Like this guy just continues to be a prick and tries to kill her, and she just has to be like, please stop and like dodge
Mm.
his attacks. I hated it.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty
Um
rough. It's if it's so counter to what Lucy wants, right?
yes.
To how Lucy operates, where she sees every battle as worth fighting, but this one is just not, and that's rough.
Yeah, like that's the thing. As much as like this would make my blood boil, I'm getting like 5% as much frustration as Lucy would. Like if she was reading this, because it's like fighting injustice is her whole thing, and this is why the hunt is such a great set of villains for her, because their whole thing is they don't let you do that. Like when they do an injustice, the solution is to sit there and bear it, and like that just goes against everything she is as a person.
Mm, yeah.
And I know it's been sort of talked to death as the winter hunt has come up in the past, but like the abusive cop angle hits really hard in this scene. Like the way he just sort of breaks into her home on this weak pretense, like messes all her shit up. Like I think the fact that he like messes her drawers around was a very intentional set of imagery.
Mm.
And yeah, she just sort of has to take it because if she escalates, like he's going to call in backup. I think his opening line is even like, "You have to respect me. I'm an officer of the court," or whatever. And it was just like, "Fuck!" Like,
I
yeah.
mean, that's just he just said that to fuck with Lucy. That's the only explanation.
But it's just, yeah, I mean, especially as we get into the next chapter, it's just the way the Wild Hunt is really escalating the like unfair shit abusive cop angle in this chapter. Just yeah, makes you hate them and also makes you think like fuck. Of course, that this is why like we're seeing Lucy go head to head with them.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, we get Guillermo to come in, and he gets the Fae to fuck off, and we get this moment from Lucy where she's like calling out to him, and he's being very heartless, and he says, "Do you have anything to say that isn't just repeating my name?" And she says, "You're better than this," and it's fucked, right? Like
What
that's
a
maybe
moment.
the most tragic Lucy moment we've had since summer break, and that is a hotly contested category.
It's such a yeah, it's such a powerful moment just to sort of slam on him while also trying to reach out to him. It just it hurts.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like I mean, it's also like Guillermo shows up here and he really is just like playing their game. I mean, honestly, there's no better way to like go at him apart from what Lucy said, which is just you're meant to be better than this, Guillermo.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I'm so excited to see what happens with him in the Winter Court because it's like you brought up John, going off to fight in the Carmine contest, and like the Winter Wild Hunt thing is continuing to feel like this is Guillermo's version of that. Like that, we know they want to take him to the court interior, and he's essentially seemingly having to sort of make his case for why he should have to stay. And Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see how he measures up against John because this feels like his equivalent of like, can he fight to stay in her life or not?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's this small like optimistic part of me that keeps tinfoiling that it's like, well, they want to bring him into the court interior, like he's a fully fledged Winter Fae, sort of. Like, does he
Mm,
actually have more pull? Because we've learnt the Wild Hunt technically aren't really part of the Winter Court; they like work for them. So in a way, he sort of outranks them if you really squint at it. So part of me keeps being like, maybe he can do something about this. And that feels like it's too easy, but I can dream.
yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's also this thought that Guillermo does show up to try and help Lucy here, right? Like, so
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, maybe there's something that's just that it's a glimmer of hope. And while the Winter Fair around, Guillermo can't be anything other than a piece of winter shit. But I don't know. It feels bad.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just want like, you could even tinfoil it where it's like this is all part of the test still or whatever, and the Winter Court will back off if Lucy like beats Musser, they'll be like, oh, that was pretty cool, check the box or whatever. But that all just feels easier and unrealistic than I think actually is going to be.
Mm,
Um, and this is the thing I come back to, like any hope I come up with for yeah, Guillermo, it's sort of like, oh well, if he stands up to them and says, no, I'm a Winter Fairy, but I'm doing this, it will, like, part of me wants to believe that that will work, but I think there's another part of me that's like, they're not gonna let him get away with that.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Tragic stuff.
to turn things around a bit, there's, like, a funny I mean, it came out like a comedy beat for me, the part, like, right at the end where Lucy's sitting alone in this room, and then it turns out Sebastian's just still on the line. Like, he just kinda saw all this, like
Yep.
it's just I mean, it's invariably a good thing because he's able to keep talking business with Lucy, and, like, as we know, when Lucy's traumatized, that the way she distracts herself is by doubling down on the work.
Yep.
And he waives his fee, which was also just kind of funny. It was just hilarious when it's just like, there's this moment of silence and just utter defeat, and then Sebastian's like, are you there? Can you hear me?" Like,
Wait.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
That's
I
just
thought you were
funny.
talking to me for a second. Good times. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is very funny. And not just funny, like he's like reached out to Avery and Verona, like he's so cool. He's like a good dude.
Yeah. I mean, he calls Gillibay out on being a bad guy because there's that funny
Yeah.
moment where he's like, "What about your dad?" And it's like, "Oh boy, don't like you don't like that's a big question here." And she's like, "Yeah, Gillimay's the closest thing." And even Sebastian's like, "That's not good. Like, he sucks."
Yeah, he sounds like a piece of shit. Yeah, correct. But yeah, so Verona arrives and summons some dogs to help clean the room. And yeah, they basically just help make sure that Lucy doesn't need to pick up the exploded pieces of her room, which is very nice of them.
Yeah, and I love the way Verona is when she enters here because like Verona essentially comes in and is like, "Why the fuck haven't you called the dog tags?" And Lucy starts like listing out the reasons why it would be like awkward and blah blah blah, and basically just sounding like Arc 12 Verona explaining why she can't ask anyone for help. And
Mm,
Verona's just like, "No, fuck that shit," and like assaults her to get the dog tags so she can summon them. Um,
yeah.
and it's just like another one of those great moments where like a Cannoneer is faced with somebody making the mistakes they used to make and thinking, nah, no, 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 we're done with this. Like, I don't
Mm,
let people make that mistake anymore because I did it.
mm, yeah. Which is good. I mean,
Yeah.
Verona and Lucy, the dream team, right? They're really uh, doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess to talk about the dogs as like a whole thing. The reason why they continue to be like the most interesting relationship that Lucy's juggling right now, to me is like I think I like Lucy sort of the way I think of it is she tends to view people in terms of like whether they are a protector or somebody like a protectee, somebody
Mm,
who needs protection.
interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
like John was obviously a protector. And then Verona in the early story was somebody who kind of
A
needed
protectee.
protection.
Yeah.
And like I'm not saying Lucy's like an idiot and views this as a total binary, but it's sort of a
Yeah.
model for how she handles like a lot of her relationships. Like she's either
Yeah.
trying to help someone feel safe or they make her feel safe.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. The dynamic to it that makes it especially interesting to me is like I feel like because she feels such a responsibility. I guess this is me just kind of rephrasing what you're saying in some ways, but she feels a responsibility for the dogs because John died to bring them back, right? And so she
Mm.
almost doesn't, I think, doesn't feel like she should lean on them for support because she kind of she feels a responsibility to support them, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. What I'm thinking is, I think Lucy does really struggle with when those lines between protector and protectee are blurred or get flipped a bit. And
Mm,
yeah, the dog tags are like this great example of that because it's hard not to compare them to John and just like their whole vibe of like they want to, fight to protect you. Like they very much are natural protectors, but because they're younger and less experienced, they do want to take cues and guidance from her. So it's like it's very unclear whether relative to her the dogs are protectors or protectees.
yeah,
And it makes it this relationship that like on top of the baggage of John, I think like is also just really difficult for her to manage because she's kind of unsure where they're meant to sit relative to her. And it's like this, it's kind of challenging this way of viewing the world as mostly protectors or protectees. And like,
yeah,
I kind of can't wait to see her like come to terms with it as she realizes that like they can be both, I guess.
yeah,
And it's fine to work with that.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Um, it's also like I think her mum fits into this model in a really interesting way
Mm,
because Lucy and Jasmine are both struggling with this new dynamic they have where like Lucy is very clearly the protector of her mum, but that doesn't work when Jasmine is the mum. Like the mum can't be the protectee, or at least, when you're 14 and with their current mother daughter dynamic, like it's really they're both struggling with the change that it's happening now that she's aware and that it's just being completely flipped.
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jasmine and her relationship with Lucy, I think, is something really interesting to track. I mean,
Yeah.
especially we see some interesting moments that Jasmine observes at the council meeting next chapter. Yeah, I think it's going to be really, I don't know, really interesting to track in Lucy and Jasmine's next conversation, the reaction to that.
Yeah, like Lucy definitely gets this impression that Jasmine kind of gets it more now. But I mean, I guess it's still. I think part of it for Lucy is like if you buy into the whole protector protectee dynamic, she needs protectors to kind of lean on to get support. Like she's not willing to at this stage in her life kind of confide and get support from somebody she views as someone she's meant to protect. And this is why the
Mm,
dogs sit awkwardly. Like she doesn't like leaning on them for emotional support instinctively because she kind of feels like she's meant to be helping them.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, for
a-
sure.
and this is why her relationship with Jasmine has been kind of flipped because her mum is meant to be her emotional support, but she can't kind of let her do that right now while she's the sort of protector in their relationship.
Mm,
Like that's part of what's going on with them. And again, this is like why I think that the Wild Hunt has been such an incredible villain for Lucy because I think since chapter one of this story, Lucy has kind of been largely defined by she wants to be a protector wherever she can. Like her story has been about growing the skills to protect as many people around her as she can. And like even during the worst parts of arcs 13 or 17 or whatever, Lucy was always still very clearly able to draw a line in the sand and be like, I am protecting Kenneth. Like, I'm fighting against people who are threatening it. Like this part was a bit of a challenge. But as we talked about, the hunt have like taken the power away from her to actually protect Kenneth. And like, yeah, she's fine dealing with insurmountable odds. The Kenneteers deal with insurmountable odds for breakfast. Um, but like
It says
what
she can't actually fight against them.
yeah, like
Yeah.
this is a fight where the answer is apparently not to fight, and it just goes against everything Lucy stands for, particularly someone who's grown to want to protect places, being told to just like let them stab
Yeah.
Verona,
No.
like that's
Yeah.
it's fucked.
Yeah. It's it is. It's rough for poor Lucy. Hey, on a lighter note, uh Lucy plays some music for the gang on her playlister, which I was wondering as soon as I saw this, do you think this is made by the same company that makes Class Ranker? Like what kind of conglomerate makes music playing software and classmate ranking software? It's just kind of a funny dystopia to put into the story if it's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see like Facebook pulling shit like that or Apple,
Yeah.
like
I mean, that's basically how Facebook started, right?
yeah.
So it makes sense.
But I mean, like, because like this is a thing in real. Silicon Valley, right, is your company just ending in R, like you drop the E and it's just a little R. And so in the other verse, apparently they went with capital R instead. Like it could be a separate group. I think
Yeah.
of like Tumblr, right? Like in the other verse, it'd just be Tumblr with a capital R.
Yeah, I guess that's one tiny difference.
Yeah, that's pretty much the major difference between our universe and the other verse, if you think about it.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't. It's just like I really enjoy this little beat where they put on the music and then grandfather's like, "I regret this." Like,
Yeah.
it's a really wholesome thing, and like Verona is like getting excited about magical citations too, which was like the first time I was like, Verona, I think you're putting it on. Like, even I don't believe you're that excited about magical citations. But yeah, I don't know. The way they cheer her up while they're putting her room back together is really sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. Um, but yeah, things continue to get worse in Kennet. So in addition to the dogs, Lucy thinks, hey, we could use a few cats.
Oh, this whole segment is great.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, this is where we learn that Verona, like speaking of cats, I guess, that's my segue. I'm sticking to it. So Verona got attacked and gainsaid herself to make them go away, which is like Verona loves getting gainsaid at this point. She's fucking right now. She's doing it willingly. I just think it's such a funny like journey Verona's been on regarding gainsaying.
Mm. Yeah. She's pro gainsaying now if it saves her. It's great. Easy peasy. Boom, boom.
And again,
Um,
it just speaks to how fucked up the Wild Hunt are. That it's just like, what if I just like sort of cripple my practice for a bit, and then they're like, yeah, that's fine. Now we'll just leave you alone. Like, they're clearly just out here to fucking hurt you. Yeah, they piss me off.
yeah. But let's talk about the cat lady because I think it's very funny. The
Yeah.
idea of a cat lady's house where cat like others get to learn how to be cats is just very fun. um, the line that we get that these cats are like fae to match up with the fact that the dogs of war are friends with goblins, so they're kind of goblin-esque, is just also um very fun. Like cats are fae, dogs are goblins. That's canon in the in the other verse.
I mean, they do also say there's a goblin cat, but we'll
No,
put that
no,
aside.
no. Ignore that.
Um,
Ignore that. Yeah.
yeah, no, I really like the setup for this because it's been so long since we heard about the aware cat lady. Like, I feel like it was like arc 11 or 10 or something. Oh god, might have even been arc 9. Anyway, just like so, like you're kind of wondering what's going on, and then it's like the dog tags are like, oh, why do we want to go to that house? And it's like all that thing on the second read. You're like, this is fucking great. Like, of course, the dog tag hates the cat house. Oh, it's
Mm,
so good.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, this aware power. It sounds like so she's turned into like Clem, but for cats. Is sort of how I'm reading it. Like she naturally gathers cats and also cat like others. What a
It is
terrible
just so
curse.
wild. I love it. Elliot, I mean, don't get too critical. You're only a few cats away from turning
Yeah,
into this
I
lady
know.
yourself.
This is my sister in like 3 years. Um,
What type of okay, here's our discussion question. What type of other do you think Chadwick is?
he's an he's an animus of cowardice.
Yeah. No, it's Chad. Is it? It's Chadwick who attacks your feet every so often, right?
No, that's Lexi. Lexi's the one with
Oh,
the foot
okay. Sorry.
fetish.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we've got
Um,
the cowardly Chadwick and the foot obsessed Lexi. Yeah, I mean that's not the worst discussion question.
yeah, or just for anyone's cat. Like, wait,
What?
what type of other is your cat
Yeah.
actually?
What type of other is your cat? Is a pretty good discussion question. All right,
Oh,
I'm gonna put it down. If we don't come up with anything better, the discussion question is gonna be what type of other is your cat?
we've been teaching the cats in this house about capitalism this week, so they're getting
Oh,
ready to be practitioner cats.
what? What the fuck are you talking about, Elliot?
Well, so they kept eating their food too quick. Like Chadwick kept choking because he was eating his food too quick. So
Right.
like Hannah bought this. It's called like a slow feeder, but it's like an obstacle course for the food. And so
Right.
you pour the food in it, and it's slow. Like now they have to work for their food, but it's completely
Yeah.
pointless work. But now, but
It just
the
slows
free
them
ride
down.
is over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we're enforcing capitalism on them.
Yeah, nice. That'll show him. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, there's one bit where a cat tries to steal Lucy's wallet, which is very fun. Um, yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a very fun scene.
I mean, my favorite bit is the part where Lucy's like, "Do any of you talk?" And then this cat's just like, "Yeah, a few of us do." Like, it's just funny.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, shout out to the zombie cat that is obviously
Yes.
needs to be Chloe's Chloe's pet.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just so
that's happening.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, the only problem with that is apparently it likes to sit in sunbeams, and Chloe doesn't have a great track record with those. But like, it's worth it. We can figure it out, make it work. It would probably be fine with like a UV lamp or something. Like, it's just like a warm
Yeah.
lamp.
Easy peasy. But so yeah, in addition to visiting the cat lady, Lucy visits Mr. Black, who operates a sports store, to convince him to sell some of his extra gear at the night market for kind of the Kennett Found and Kennett Above people who don't have enough winter gear to keep warm, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think Lucy's talked about this in the past, like talking to this guy, and so it's just a win-win, like
Yeah.
just a good
Um,
idea.
yeah, no, legit. And it's very like, I mean, it's very communal focused here. Like, this is not a practitioner that they need to get on board to make sure that the market is more appealing to outside practitioners, right? Like, this is purely to support the town and to be good to the people in the town, right? And I think that's wonderful because it's so Lucy, and we kind of find out next chapter that it actually also is great because it's like tying the town together and building communal spirit, which is tangibly a benefit against Musser. So, like, I don't know, it just is a great demonstration of how the Kennetiers and their way of being nice actually works out a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, this is an example of just bringing normal, innocent world Canada above stuff into the market, right? Like like if you think about it from the perspective of viewing Canet Found, Canet Below, and Canet Above as equal but separate units, this is just the example of like what can Canet Above contribute to the market in a way. Like, it's just a weird way to think about it because we are Canet Above citizens. Essentially, we operate
Yeah.
in the real world, so we just see it as like a normal communal thing, but like I feel like this is the equivalent for Kennett Below selling weird shit to Kennett Above citizens. This is Kennett Above giving like societal support stuff to Kennett Below.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. No, it's good stuff. It's very nice. I do like that his very fair reaction is, "Oh, this is clearly a scam.
Yeah,
Clearly this is not right."
yeah. It's like if you're innocent, if you live in a world without magic, of course this is a scam. Like because she's like, no, you don't understand. We run the markets every week, and I feel like Mr. Black and I were like simultaneously can't support a weekly market at midnight. What are you talking about? Like, this is a town of 5,000 people. That's not a thing. Yeah, I don't. I just, yeah, it's of course, he thinks it's a scam. It sounds scammy as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then after they leave here, we should also talk about there's like this interesting moment where Lucy sees Wallace, and of course Wallace is like, "Who the fuck are these bodyguards you're hanging out with?" And she's like, "Ah, don't worry about it." But like obviously they're quite disconnected at the moment, and Lucy sort of has this worry that like she maybe doesn't have feelings for him anymore, or she can't tell because maybe there's just too much going on right now for her to have the emotional bandwidth for like a crush or early relationship or whatever. And I'm just interested where other people feel like this because feel on this because like part of me is like, well, yeah, you there's too much shit going on. It's not a concern that you're not worried about your relationship right now. Like that makes sense. But
Mm,
also, I mean, shit like this happens to Lucy fairly regularly, and like the fact is he's not a part of this. Like we've just been talking about how her the way she's going to apparently get wedded more into the world of practitioners, and you're just sort of looking at Wallace completely outside of that, and I'm wondering what people think. Like, is this actually the first sign that things are going to go south in this relationship?
mm. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Lucy, she almost feels like she thinks that there's she almost feels like she's kind of making a problem. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily think there's a problem, but she thinks, I don't know, she thinks that yeah, she's like thinking a problem into existence. I guess I don't quite know how to describe it.
Yeah, but I like that thinking. I think is not unfounded because like it is. Like if he can't be a part of this side of her life,
Mm.
there's only so much traction this relationship can
Yes.
gain, and obviously, she's 14 or whatever, so like there's only so much traction it needs to gain as like a first relationship you have as a teenager. But
Mm.
I mean, I guess the other thing I think is like even if she did go ahead and like awaken him
Mhm.
he's never not gonna be like another protectee, right? Like even if like it's gonna be the same as Jasmine or whatever. It's gonna feel like somebody else who she has to run things by and like take care of or something. Like bringing Wallace into this world, I don't know that it's actually gonna help in any way. I
Mm.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know as well. I don't think bringing Wallace into the magic world is the right move, at least not yet.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just interesting. I think like yeah, like this to me ties into the stuff we're talking about with Lucy and the wedding in to the practitioner world stuff. Where I think she's gonna be confronted with questions about like how any romantic relationship prospects factor into like the career. Like she's essentially locking herself into a bit of a career as a lawyer slash fighter in the practice and I
Mm.
think the next step is to confront where her love life fits into that lifestyle, I guess.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah, her and Wallace are undoubtedly like get on really well and stuff. But like, is he gonna be at all able to support or help her with this career, like with this career she wants to get into? For me, the answer feels like no, but maybe he would surprise me. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um It's hard to say. I mean, maybe he's got his health problems. Maybe getting into the practice will be his Doctor Strange moment. Who knows?
Or yeah, I mean, even just like yeah, like I don't think Lucy needs to date an action hero. I guess just as long as she's dating someone who would like I don't know, be able to have her back or something.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't know. People, I also joked in my live read. We got to look out for the negatives because they're established practitioners. So there's maybe some shipping fodder in the negatives.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, they later have a council meeting, and Rook is notably late. But before they can ask her about it, she tells them Musser's going to be here soon.
Yeah, and this is one of those meetings. It's been a while since we had one where like Wildbow really makes it feel big and important because we get like the details on everyone as they trickle in. Like it's like, and then the goblins came in, and they're like blah blah blah, and it just really like as you keep reading that, it really sort of sets the tone for how big and important this meeting is going to be.
Mm,
Whereas more often these days, we tend to just like find out people have been sitting there the whole time or whatever. Like we just cut to the meeting and then it doesn't have that same gravitas as like, and then X showed up and then Y showed up. Like that just makes it feel like we're getting ready for a big deal.
mm, yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. What's the deal with Rook? What's going on here?
She's so fucking sus. Like, this makes me remember as well. Fucking Turtle Queen. What's have we heard from the Turtle Queen since the time skip? I feel like we did
No.
briefly, or was that Arc 18? I don't remember. Just like,
Hmm.
yeah, it just it feels like it's been 5 months, both in real life and in story time, that the Kettitiers have been like, yeah, we need to have a chat about Rook, and then s- Rook's just like, yeah, suspiciously late to meetings like this. And it's like, when are we going to have this talk about Rook?
Yeah. It's not this week because we're distracted by fucking Musser.
Yeah, I mean, uh, as much as you hate, Rook potentially working with the culprits a bit too much. I mean, if there's ever a time to bring someone like that on board, it's to fight like Musser.
Mm, yeah.
Also, sorry, so Avery's like legged it here to make it here early, and that makes sense. Like, it's partially her fault that, that Musser has organized his little visit, but like. So is her family coming here without her then? Or I guess this made me realize how is Nora getting to Kennet?
Um,
Like, I guess by
by
bus?
path?
Well, I guess because bus, like, I don't know. I guess I had it in my head that Nora was going to travel with Avery and her family. And so then I had this thought that Nora had been stuck on a road trip with Sheridan and Kelsey, um,
Mm,
which sounded hilarious. But in retrospect, I think they were always coming earlier. So I guess Nora was going to take the bus. But yeah, I don't know. Like a part of me's just like, with all these new others between Thunder Bay and Kennet, is Avery going to go back to escort her family, or is that worse?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It might be worse. I think it's worse, probably. Like, would the dropped call know who Nora is? Probably not, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I get like speaking of Nora as well. We forgot to talk about this last week, but so Nora's come out to her dad now. Do you think she told him about Avery? Did we get a confirmation about whether like he knows that like this this trip is with her girlfriend?
Mm, um,
It probably doesn't matter, but like I don't know. That it feels like it would matter to the dad, I suppose.
yeah, you're right. We don't know that, do we? We don't know. I think if Avery, if Nora's dad knows Avery is her partner.
I mean, yeah, like part of me was like, well, I mean, surely he must be able to put the dots together of, hey, dad, I'm gay, and also I'm going to, visit my
My
new best
friends,
friend's
just my
family.
close female friends'
Yeah,
family. Yeah, no, you'd
my
think.
my future roommate. But then also, like, this is Nora's dad, so you can't be sure, right? Like, he's pretty fucking vague. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so anyway, that's the end of 1915. 1916 picks up right where it left off. Musser is arriving with his contingent, the dollmaker, the lawyer, and the Durocher.
And yeah, I mean, just the nervous energy that is in this chapter, like it was so contagious. Like Lucy keeps bouncing her leg and like forcing herself to stop, and it's just the opening to this chapter, even before Musser arrives, is mostly just like fun character interactions and banter amongst Kennet as they wait, and you can't quite enjoy it as much as you want because it's constantly intercut with Lucy just like on the verge of having a panic attack. Like she's freaking the fuck out, and she should be like that. Totally makes sense, but it's just like the intensity it brings you into this conversation with is so effective.
Mm, yeah, yeah. It's a strong start. It's very nervous energy, right?
Yeah,
As they're
because we're
waiting.
nervous. We're nervous too,
Oh, of
obviously. So
course.
like it's very
Yeah.
easy for Wildbow to pull on these strings, but he still does it.
As we're waiting for them to arrive, they're talking about like how you're not allowed to attack somebody when they're on their way to a meeting you've invited them to. And Verona, of course,
Yeah,
asks,
how,
"Can
how
you
can I break
exploit
it?
that?" Yeah, she never switches off this one, does she?
No, and she shouldn't. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Um,
Um,
Sorry, I also just like as we're going through like all these fun character beats, Matthew and Louise have a little moment, and Lucy just full on studies them to see if she can tell if they're crushing on each other, and she comes out blank. But it's just like Wildbow's clearly fucking playing with us at this point. He knows that the Matthew Louise shipping is strong in the community, and it just feels like this line is in here to fuck with us.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Also, so yeah, Musser does arrive, and the first thing he says when he comes in here is he goes, "A white rabbit told me to come,"
Yeah.
and so just don't let it ever be said that Musser doesn't have jokes or doesn't have a sense of humor because that's a funny line. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But then he gets slammed for not remembering
No, yeah, I mean
not remembering Luna's name.
they rightfully call him out, but like I thought it was a funny joke, and you don't get to say stuff like that about Musser very often, so I thought I'd take the chance.
Mm, yeah, yeah, fair enough. Durocher walks in, and of course, that immediately, I mean, as if it was even possible, escalates this even further.
Yeah. And also had me going, like, just while she's here, can anyone ask, like, hypothetically, if there's some sort of god that was acting as a funnel of energy between two realms, like the abyss and some place full of blood, like, hypothetically, Durashay, what would you do in that situation? Just hypothetically, of course.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's fun when Durocher enters, and it's nice to see that Durocher is still, on the fence at some point, but still, it's sad, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, I think there's a bit later where we'll talk about the frustrating angle to Durashay's neutrality here. but there's a fun vibe at the start where you can tell she's just kind of rocked up because she's like, "Hey, Kenneth sounds fucking whack," and as an expert in all things gigantic and whack, what's your deal? Like, it's just I don't know, like it's almost worse because she shows up and she's exactly what you'd want, which is someone who just looks at Kenneth and goes, "This is fascinating. Tell me more." And like, she feels like somebody you could use against Marissa and Charles. So it's just she's so fun, and then it's just like, yeah, she just refuses to be anti-Musser and drives you nuts later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you get the sense that she realizes right around the time when Musser's talking about how he's going to sell off a bunch of young women, that that she's maybe not picked the right side here, hopefully, but I don't know, we'll see.
Oh no, Ruben, she hasn't picked any sides. They made this
Yeah, sure,
very
sure, sure.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think Musser is really forcing her to wrestle with that policy. It's taking longer than you'd expect for this centrist to realize that allying herself with the tyrant is a bad thing, but it seems to always be the case.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I like this moment where Durocher mentions that she might chat to Charles, and they tell her that Charles will probably gainsay her, and Durocher says, "Oh, I'd ask him to make an exception because otherwise a bunch of practitioners will have to clean up the messes that pop up." And I mean, like, I almost feel like Charles would just do it just even more so in that regard. I know that he doesn't necessarily want to make enemies out of the entire world outside of this area of Canada, but I do think he kind of will just fuck with shit to watch it burn a bit.
Um, so I don't know. I'd refute that. Like,
Mm,
Charles has created, like, obviously Charles creates big messes, but like they're messes he feels like he's in control of. I don't see him doing this unless he feels like he has some way of, calculating what exactly is going to happen if Derosha gets gainsaid. Like, can he strong arm some of the primevals or whatever the fox that come out of it? Like, I don't think he creates messes just for the sake of messes. He creates messes he thinks he's doing something with.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't trust Charles that much. He is spiteful, and I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him to be spiteful in this.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously yeah, he's a vindictive little cunt, but like everything has been part of his plan. Like, I don't know, like unless he's got a way to justify it to himself as helping his grander agenda, I don't see him doing it unless she angers him and makes him and it's part of a tantrum. Like, I could see him chucking Tandy about it, but yeah, I don't know. Like,
Mm.
I don't think he specifically has enough against Derosha to want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so. I hope so. She seems nice.
Yeah, it's also like just how crazy is it that if she gets gainsaid, like that much she could like imagine having that pressure of never being able to get gainsaid. I couldn't because how does a normal person not just get gainsaid like once every couple of months or something, right? Like
Mm.
I feel like the average practitioner must get a little bit gainsaid every now and then, surely.
Yeah, maybe it's a defense mechanism for Durachet to gainsay or try and come at me, and it fucks over everybody so bad.
Yeah, but there's still an aspect of that, like, she needs to avoid gainsaying herself, uh, like, gainsaying isn't always called out by practitioners,
No, you're
sometimes
right. You're right.
yeah. Like, I don't
Yeah.
I just, like, at work recently, I had to review a transcript of a meeting I was a part of to, like, sign off on it,
Mm.
and, like, just rereading what I'd said in this interview, and it was just very much like, God, I'd be easy to gainsay, like, it's not often you get the chance to go through and actually analyze everything you've said in a 45-minute meeting, and just reading it was just like the amount of times extra clarifications and stuff had to be asked. It was just like, oh god, yeah, you could gainsay the shit out of me so easily.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, but yeah, so their conversation turns into a debate. Firstly, around whether Musser is a good leader or not. Spoiler alert: he's not. But obviously, this has been a bullshit.
Yeah, and I'm like, what I love about this as well is, we got two sections to get through here before we get past the petty bullshit and get to the actual conversation. Like,
Hmm.
the coup and claim nonsense here means that Musser and Hall have to argue whether Musser is in fact a good leader. Like it's just so
Yeah.
it not only are they just bullshitting, but also it's just petty bullshitting. Like it just sucks.
Yeah, but no, but Elliot, Mr. Hall went and we swear asked a bunch of people who totally aren't scared of Musser and totally wouldn't uh, give totally would feel comfortable giving an answer that he's a bad leader, and they said he was a good leader. So I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, and he never specifies that it was a random sampling or anything. Like he's very like I
Mm.
asked a group of people, which is like could have just been the fucking inner circle.
Yeah, no,
Like
I asked Talia Grubard 6 times if she thought Musser was a good leader or not, and she said yes every time.
I asked all of Musser's familiars, and they assured me this is Charles's fault. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like, but it's also just like the reason that I kind of hate this is because like this is what Charles has done is like he's giving Musser this out because like it's kind of true to say that Musser's shit all exploded because of Charles because like, if Charles hadn't swept in at the end of arc 17 it kind of looked like Musser was probably gonna win so
Mm.
like you know to say it's Charles's fault that Musser's stuff is in shambles it isn't wrong but it's so clearly not addressing the criticism of his leadership like it's such ah, fucking! I mean, like I'm gonna say this like 100 times as we talk about this chapter, but it just fucking makes me angry because that's not what we're talking about. Like there's a moment where they're talking about what he did, and Mr. Hall says he acted on the final stages of a plan of action that had its groundwork and initial actions taken well ahead of the Carmine exile taking his throne and the making of that truce. He sought to take a town and secure it and then Lucy interrupts and says, "Against the Carmine." He literally talked about stopping the
Yeah.
Carmine, and like
Yeah.
that's
It's
the part
bullshit.
where you just start to lose it because it's like, yeah, as like Lucy has to pull out the like, no, you literally said this, like you
Yeah.
can't claim that this has nothing to do with the Carmine exile. You literally talked about him, like it just it boils your blood. Yeah, and I guess like, to talk about the setup of this chapter, I think this is why I'm really extra like triple glad that we got this pair of Lucy chapters because there's a real 1-2 punch to like last chapter was the abusive cops and then this chapter is the like abuse of the legal system like it's like this cursed law and order episode where you know we saw the power abusive cops last chapter and now we're getting the fucking rich asshole with a rich lawyer who can just kind of argue around the bullshit and pull these technicalities and it just game the system and it pisses you off.
Yeah. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, it's clearly ridiculous.
Yeah, and to jump ahead a bit, I think that's why it makes the sort of ultimate victory Lucy secures in this conversation feel so good because she's made this conscious effort to play their stupid game and play this legal game, and eventually pays off. And you're just like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
But we'll
Yeah.
get there.
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about it, I guess, in a bit, because the next point of debate is whether Musser is just an heir or whether he has earned everything that he has. Again,
Yeah,
bullshit, right? Like it's
yeah,
ridiculous. Like clearly they are. We as the audience know what they're referencing. The
yeah,
Musser patriarchal line have earned everything that they have because Musser's earned everything that he has because he Musser is a line of whatever
yeah.
tens of people, hundreds of people,
Like
and
Musser, the echoey concept has earned
yes.
everything he has. Leaving aside, you
No,
know, the
no,
slavery bullshit and like,
yeah, no, he hasn't. Because we know, for example, Massa stole brains from his friend who he killed. Like, is that earning everything you have? No, fuck no. Like, even putting aside all the Musserite bullshit, it's
it's
not
still,
earned.
but like,
It's clearly. I mean, like, and this is again obviously intentional on Marpo's part, and I
yeah.
love Lucy as a character. And this is why, is because I feel like I relate so much to this. This is such bullshit.
Yeah, and I mean, it's only probably going to get even worse. But yeah, like, because you're right,
Mm,
like, it's just like this is the thing is you can't argue with someone like this who's just going to like have such a fundamentally different baseline for like the definition of words like earned.
Mm.
like, because you can't get past them because they're just gonna keep like, they're gonna make the argument. It's like, "No, he did, quote, unquote, earn it, and you might not agree with the morality of that shit now or whatever, but it's like, it's still valid or whatever," and, like, it's just what pisses me off about this whole guy, this lawyer, is he's constantly referring to rules of discourse and the importance of this precedent, and these words mean this thing, but then,
Mm.
like, he when he's not doing that, he's like happily abusing the definition of words so thoroughly that they don't have any meaning anymore. Like I hate it. I hate it. I hate the way he will just like yeah, be like, no, 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 he did earn it because like blah blah blah, and like just corrupt the definition of what earning it means to the point where it technically lines up and he has an argument. And you're just, it's just you can't argue with someone who's going to distort language like that. I mean, this is the other half of what's wrong with the seal, right? Is like Musser
Yeah.
is one half of what's wrong with the seal, and he's teamed up with his lawyer as the fucking other half, which is like corrupting what words mean so that the seal's fucking irrelevant because truth doesn't matter anymore.
Mm.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just yelling at the last 6 years of the world right now as well as the story.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I mean, yeah, it's it's bullshit. I mean, that's
yeah.
it.
I do love though that like pretty early into this, Verona just pipes up and asks Musser if he's immortal, which is
Yep.
like
Boom. Got him.
classic Verona, fucking so close. Like it feels like she's 90% there, and it's extremely early in after the whole oh he earned it even though it's his family, even though that doesn't count bullshit. Like she hones in on this technicality very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, we do get a confirmation here that Massa had to fight, like, you know, Verona's and Charles's little hobby project. And he says that he lost two things to it. And
Mm.
I'm just kind of curious what those might have been. Like, are we talking implements and or familiars here? Like that would be fun. I don't know, yeah. I'm just curious to learn what Massa lost in this.
I hope we will find out. I feel like
Yeah.
he probably just had to spend resources. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah. So as punishment for Verona's shenanigans, Musser threatens to marry off all of the teens of the lower houses that they've been conspiring with, and kill what's her face? I can't remember her name, but
Yeah,
their
Andrea,
mother. Yeah,
the nice lady. Yeah.
Andrea Fulton. Is that right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, so great, Musser, thumbs up. You're a really great leader, pal.
Leadership.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember them covering this at the leadership seminar I went to in high school. I mean, yeah, like as this becoming the mantra of every little segment you're doing here, this is bullshit. Like, it's just it's so clearly tyrannical punishment, and he just has no shame.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Musser. Musser. But yeah, can we talk about how well Lucy's doing here? She is nailing it in this conversation, right? We'll get to the
Yeah.
contract in a second, but feels like she's really perfectly pulling out the responses to all of Musser's bullshit in a great way.
Yeah, like honestly, watching this, you could see how in a few months Lucy's gonna be like the Avery, like as Avery is to finders, Lucy feels like she's quickly becoming to legal practitioners. Like
Mm.
feels like she's picking this shit up really quickly, and I feel like Lucy is I would be trying to hire her as an intern if I was in this practice. And you know, she wouldn't accept it, obviously, but like you know, it's going to be one of those weird things where Sebastian's going to be the new Garrick, so kind of rises up the pecking order just because he's associated with Lucy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, this is also the part where Lucy tries to bring Derosha like out of fucking fairyland, and is just like, "Hey, how about not being neutral when one of us is trying to be cool and the other one is talking about like murdering people and
Yeah,
marrying
murdering
off
people,
children?"
selling off children. Yeah, it's fucked.
And wait, I hate it extra. Like, wait, because there's obviously the blood boiling nature of Derosha's like bullshit centrism, where she's like, "I don't take sides," and it's like, well, then you're implicitly like okaying him doing this shit.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Not taking sides is taking a side. Durashay, come on, get on board.
yes. But it also hurts just an extra layer because Derosha and Lucy actually kind of had something at the BHI. Like there was
Hmm.
that moment where Lucy threatened to shoot her with a gun, and then Derosha was like, "Hey, you're cool." And like I remember hoping at that time that they would hang out more, and that they didn't end up happening because well, they got the school shut down. But I don't know. Like it felt like Derosha had a bit of respect for Lucy, and I feel like she should have had even more after this conversation. It just hurt so much that Derosha did nothing. Yeah, I don't know. I was like, no, don't you remember? Lucy was cool. She tried to shoot you. That was great.
Yeah, yeah, it's good stuff.
So this is also where we learn that yeah, this is where we learn that Verona, God,
Verena.
Verona toyed, Verona toyed with the idea of like cursing the town so that if
Yes,
Musser took it, it would be a poison pill, which is just like
very fun.
it was because Alania was like, "Did you consider doing this?" And it was like, even before Verona refused to deny it, I was like, "Oh yeah, she did.
Of course,
Like
she
hundred,
considered doing
hundred,
it. Did she
hundred
actually do it?
percent."
Is the question. Yeah.
Like just nobody on the Kennett side even questioned that. Verona would have at least considered this as an option.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, good stuff. So yeah, Musser talks about his claim to Kennet, which is blood, sweat, and reeds spent in the name of Kennet, and somehow the fact that he sent his son to die for no reason is meant to be a positive in his eyes. I guess I don't know.
Oh, yeah, he used to say, like, yeah, like fuck this, just this chapter. Like, do you remember the Phineas trial? And I feel like a whole episode of the Phineas trial was like, God, their logic is aggravating. Awabo's really outdone it in this one because this is just
Yeah.
like, yeah, Muscle keeps pitching the stupidest shit, but also I can see why the argument holds up legally. Like, like his son did die here, so of course that does count for points for his seed being here. Or whatever. Like you can see the train of logic. It's just like it's so clearly bullshit if you really think about it.
Mm.
Like it's this letter of the war versus spirit of the war nonsense where Musser and Hall just flip it to whatever is convenient for them because apparently that's the one that matters now. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
just this chapter.
Yeah. Um. So yeah. Anywho, uh, the contract we get the contract inspection. Hall inspects the contract and it holds up. Sebastian's the champ, MVP Sebastian.
Yeah. But the delivery on it though,
Oh
like there's the
yeah,
moment
yeah,
where Wildbow makes us and Lucy think it's not holding up, and I
yeah.
was I
Oh
was
my god.
ready to cry. I was
Yeah,
gonna
no, I legit was about to flip the fuck out. I don't even know, like, I don't even know what it was because it's not like, yes, it's major. Of course, it's major, but it's not. It's no worse than other things that have happened to them already. I guess it's just like reflecting on it because it really did emotionally impact me very
yeah,
strongly. Like my heart was in my fucking throat, and I think it's because they just haven't had many wins lately, and they're so
yeah.
close to having a win. And this isn't even really a win because they don't. It doesn't like scare Musser off or anything, but just the fact that they at least had something is so reassuring. And when it was about to get taken away from them, I don't think I could have handled it, to be
No.
honest.
Well, like this is why this is happening in the Lucy chapter, and why we had the chapter with the Wild Hunt before, because like we've just had so much time really dedicated to making us on Lucy's page with this frustration at not being able to act, and it's like fighting Musser here is somehow the best option they have to actually do something because all of their other enemies are completely untouchable, whereas Musser's down enough that it's like, hey, maybe we can touch him. So you like they've had to put all their eggs in this one basket and you just feel it slipping away and it hurts and then it suddenly comes through and you're like, oh thank Christ, like now we can actually start the fight, like now we get to the hard part, but like we for a second you didn't even think we were going to get this and it hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, it really hurts. But it didn't happen, so that's great. Sebastian pulled it out. Well played. So yeah, with the contract solid, Musser decides, well, fuck it. I might just put in all the effort and resources and fuck you over. So I'm gonna take down the town and the contracts and all that shit.
I love the delivery of his line. Like he just says, "Then burn." Like
Yeah.
they finally sort of get the win. And he's like, "Okay, just burn it down." Like as he points out, it's like they made it so he either burns the Kennet market or all the other markets, and he's like, "Well, that's easy. Then I'll burn you guys." Which it feels like I assume they saw this coming. Like this is,
Yeah.
they were ready for this, to a degree. But it's just one of those moments where I love Musser as a villain because he just hears this and just calmly is like, okay, then burn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I love Rook's little line here after he leaves and they're talking about what to do. Rook says of him, "A man like Musser, left with no good way to get what he wants, will not give up what he wanted. He will give up good." Great line by Rook. Shame that you know she didn't say that in front of a mirror or anything. Because it's a little advice she could take up on her own end. But it's a great line.
Mm, yeah. Um, yeah. Good line. But yeah, so they Rook wants to just ditch Kennett because, they they didn't stop Massa. But they take a vote and decide to fight, which great. They're gonna try and fuck up Massa, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, like Rook wants to cut and run. I was thinking again, is this another beat of Rook being sus? I don't think it is. This is just Rook's strategy of
Yeah, this
losing
is the
and
same
giving up.
mistake. Mistake she's made 100 fucking times. Like, just this is the thing about Rook. I feel like she's either making the same mistake she has 100 times to the point where even the Winter Fairy was making fun of her for being stuck in a rut,
Mm,
um, or she's doing stupid new shit. Like, I can't with Rook sometimes.
yeah. But yeah, so they summon the judges, and it's time to litigate.
I do love how they're like, "Hey, everyone but Charles, come in here." What's not involve Charles? And then Charles shows up,
Yeah,
and it's
then he
like,
just shows
"Fucking
up
of
anyway, of
course."
course.
Because I mean, it really feels like the other three judges have just happily let him take the reins of most everything. I mean, very explicitly, he keeps going up to them and being like, "I want this jurisdiction too," and they're like, "Okie doke."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I love Charles as a villain, so this was great. But also, it's just kind of like you can't just help. You just can't help but look at the other three judges sometimes and be like, "You guys couldn't do anything." Like
Yeah.
honestly, sometimes it feels like it'd be more useful to have a wet paper bag in the other three judges' positions. Like,
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see.
yeah,
How
like
how it goes, I guess.
I mean, they're really making the case for Verona's plan to replace the three of them. Just like
Yeah.
every time they refuse to do fucking anything. But yeah, this is so exciting because like I don't know the vibe I got from what the Kenneteers talk about with going up against Massa and taking away his advantages and like making sure he's really self-made is like it sounds like another fucking ritual. Like the story's all about them sort of contests like this at the moment between Verona's new other and Dryden and stuff. But
Mm,
this feels like I don't know, especially with Charles at the reins. I'm like, are we going to get to see AJ come out for a little bit? That could be fun.
mm.
I don't realistically expect that the entity of Mossa will be out of the competition entirely. That would be too easy. But I think getting a glimpse at AJ as a part of this would be really fun.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows what this could even look like? I guess the well, Propaganda Pagoda suspects that they know what this might look like in our Power Prediction segment. Um, Propaganda Pagoda says that the trio will get to experience a day in Musser's shoes, and from this kind of come to understand what he is and the kind of dichotomy of AJ versus Musser, which I think is a very fair prediction. And then Propaganda Pagoda takes us further to say he'll probably still win, but everyone will know what his deal is and basically be able to take over what he's built or shut him down or something like that. Which, yeah, I mean, I anticipate that's probably what we're going to see. We know that the judges like to put people in other people's shoes for these kinds of competitions, so it kind of would make sense to me that that's what we'll see. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be. I think it's going to be really exciting and interesting.
I really hope, and I know this is optimistic, but just let me dream. That we get the moment where they somehow meet AJ or they see AJ and they see that he loves the movies and they get to bring up how what he's doing to Raquel is just exactly what his dad did to him. Like I would just relish the moment so badly of like AJ having it thrown back at him that like, yeah, he's doing to Raquel what his dad did to him.
Mm,
Also, just because the thing that continues to really piss me off about the Mussers shutting down Mussers loving like TV show and movies is like this is the other verse. Like knowing like stories is the world. Like like it's a good thing to be trope aware. So it's fucking wild to me that it isn't a form of homework to watch a movie every now and then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
could
so I
be.
don't know. I
Yeah.
just very optimistically, I want to believe in getting to see AJ and seeing him love his movies, and then get Raquel thrown in his face for that.
Mm, yeah. Um, we already talked about your prediction from Giles Zal as well, Elliot. Is there anything else we want to
Yes.
say about it while we're here?
I think we did get a few other predictions for people who Raquel could be
Oh yeah,
engaged to. Um, there were some other good ones. I mostly just pulled out this one because I think the idea that it would be Timon Leos is just good dramas.
it is very good, isn't it? Yeah. Um, But yeah, so thank you to folks for leaving your predictions in our Pale Predictor form, which you can find linked in the show notes down below. Now on to the discussion question, Elliot. Our
Yeah.
discussion question for the last fortnight was a bit of a different one. It was make an other to counter a specific practitioner in the story. I'm realizing we said explicitly practitioner, which means some of my guesses are incorrect. But anyway, make another to counter a specific practitioner in the story, and we'll try and guess who you're countering. Which was quite a fun one, wasn't it? I really loved reading all of these
Yeah.
different others that we got.
Literally, the only problem with this is because we were a bit late getting, or at least in my case, getting the notes done. I kind of had to rush this part, so I don't think all my guesses are as good as they could be. It's a shame we had to rush this. I could play this game for a lot longer.
Yeah, I guess let's get into it. Some of them have answers posted here, some of them don't. So some of them we'll just have to kind of hope that we're correct or assume that we're
Yeah.
correct, I guess. Um, I guess let's just do them in order, right? Usually we
Yeah.
jump around, but yeah. So first we have Thomas Berubeg, who created the Little Chirurgeon, who's gave me Bonesaw from Worm-esque vibes. I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
if you got
Yeah.
that, Elliot, but specifically
100%.
operating on connections, right? So yeah, the vibe that they could operate on connections, something that Thomas specifically said was that they could like invert the familiar practitioner relationship or the implement practitioner relationship. Like that to me feels very Musser targeted. Like
Yeah.
get Musser who has a few familiars. If the chirurgeon was able to come in and swap that around, I mean, it would be perfectly tailored to fuck with him, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like, also, I think, like really any organization, like, I definitely agree that Muscle feels like the obvious candidate, but you could probably point it at any big organization of practitioners and others, and it could wreak havoc. Like, Kennett would get fucked up by this too, I think.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but you're right. Like, Muscle's probably the prime candidate.
All right, this one has an answer. Let me read it out. I had planned something that could mess with both with Musser, but also mess with the Kenneteers. Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Hey, well played, Elliot. I think you got
bonus
that one.
points.
Definitely get the point there. Um, well done. All right, should we keep score? I think we should both get a
No.
point for that one. All right, no keeping score. Fine.
Um, so then we got one from Sangachi who pitched the Aurum Weaver, and this is basically an other that finds like an entrepreneur, latches onto them, like funds their
Mm,
business, and then basically starts their own copycat and like
yes.
rips it off and overtakes it, and then both of them ultimately die because theirs is hollow and fake and was just designed to close the other one, but they like sort of feed on the owner at the end
Yeah.
after
And,
they've like
and
stolen their business.
use the kind of connections they've got from this to kind of segue into their next target, I suppose. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really love this, the idea of this one, like a business, conceptual business parasite. I thought that was very
Yeah.
cool.
This is
Um,
just a cool other.
a very
Like,
cool
yeah.
other, obviously designed to target some more kind of capitalisty characters. Um,
Mm.
I felt like this was designed to fuck over Kennett through the Kennett market specifically. Potentially Clem as well was one that I thought would make sense, but then also Wondercand. As soon as we realized that we had forgotten about Wondercand, I thought, oh fuck, like this would be great to fuck with Wondercand, right?
So,
Get into some of them through a side hustle, which is kind of explicitly mentioned, and then move into taking over the entire corporate structure.
I see. I more got the vibe it was targeting early entrepreneurs, like
Mm,
Wondercand. I think the Garrix would be a better target than Wondercamp
Yeah,
if we're
true.
talking path stuff.
Well, it does say targeting like early entrepreneurs for sure, but kind of sometimes as an entry point to a larger organization, I guess.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I would say like Clem, maybe Bristow before Bristow died would kind of make sense.
Yeah, so I
Wondercand.
I had Toad Swallow and Verona as well,
Mm,
because they're other entrepreneurs at the moment, but, like, the big one was Ray for me.
mm,
Just, like, the ultimate sort of entrepreneur, I guess, in the story,
yeah.
intentional or otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good point. Ray is a good one as well. I think we've got
Eh
Sengachi in chat.
yeah.
Should we?
Um
Oh, it
oh, it was Toad
was
Swallow.
Toad Swallow. So
Yeah.
I think you were close to that one, weren't you? You get the
He
point for
he
that
was
one.
he was in my list,
Yeah,
but,
yeah, yeah,
I'm really playing the numbers game at this point rather than
yeah.
getting it right.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fine.
the reason I was pitching Ray, was just because I also feel like, to a certain degree, like, this reminds me of that thing that, Alexander had in his past, the, like, spider thing that tried to eat him and romance him.
Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah,
A
yeah.
and there
Good
was an
point.
aspect to that thing of, like, you need a certain level of negligence to sort of not realize something's going on, and so Ray jumped out to me as the entrepreneur who would just have a blind spot for somebody fucking with the business side of his business because it's not why he's in it.
Mm,
Similarly, honestly, also for Verona. But
mm.
Verona, I think, is a little bit more switched on than Ray. So Ray jumped out to me as an answer for this, just because it's like, yeah, I can see him just not noticing that something was fucking him up.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, definitely. Um, we next had an answer from Celio, whose answer was the burning eagle, and I fucking love the story of this one.
Yeah,
It was an eagle who kind of feasted on a divine being, and then kind of got the opportunity to feast on more and more divine beings, and kind of is resistant to fire as well. This one felt very tailor made to eat Tashlit to me. Like Tash, this is just here to completely fuck over Tash. That was
Y-
at least my impression.
yeah. It's interestingly, my first thought was Tashlit's mom. Um,
Mm.
but same shit, really. Yeah. For some reason, it was funny though because it was like, because my thing was like, yeah, big eagle. It's probably going to eat snakes. That feels right to me. And then I thought about, like, why do I think that? Like, is that a thing? Do eagles eat snakes? Why was I instantly like, eagle eating a snake tracks? Is that a thing?
Hmm. Um, I think it is a thing. I think yeah, there are definitely some birds that eat snakes.
Okay, good.
And
Uh,
maybe you're
uh,
just kind of getting confused with the early bird catches the worm, and like a worm
yeah,
is just a small snake. So a
yeah,
big bird would eat a big
that's a
worm.
biology.
Kind of tracks, makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, because I was like, "Oh, the eagle eating the snake imagery tracks," and then I was like, "Where the fuck have I pulled that from?" Um, yeah. So yeah, I went very similar to you. I was going for Tashlit's mom.
And the answer is Marisica in mind, written with Marisica in mind,
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a
which
god
also
killer.
does make sense. It's a god killer. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and eagles also eat
Moths.
like worms and moths,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. We had a bisexual punch party who talked about the garden and the gardener. So the garden is kind of a hedge maze ritual, and if you solve it, you get a green thumb. But if you try and cheat by cutting through it, you get the gardener who will fuck you up, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so I was thinking this one is a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I had a good answer to it, but the thing that jumped out to me was like it has to be somebody who would want the green thumb ability, so ability to plant things that grow well, but and B would try and cheat. And then to me, I just thought Verona from that. I mean, I don't know, like I know she would want the green thumb, but she is kind of like trying to grow businesses. Maybe was what I was thinking.
Ooh.
Bit of a stretch, but that's the
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
language tricks that the other verse has sometimes in it, right? So
Yeah. I guess.
yeah, I don't
Who
know.
has been trying to be a gardener? Oh, it's that guy from Pate, the trifold gardener.
Oh
Um,
yeah, could be.
no. Um, yeah, the thing that latched into my mind was the way that this incarnate ritual was. It seemed incredibly claustrophobic, like the way it was. There's so much of the garden, and it's really hard to
Mm,
walk. Which led me to an answer from a character who's from Pact and not from Pale, and I just couldn't look past my Pact answer, so I don't even have a good Pale pitch because I just keep coming back to my Pact answer,
Mm.
which I can't say, but I feel like if I'm mentioning claustrophobia and Pact, people are probably able to put that together. Oh, we've got
Yeah, we've got the answer here in our Discord.
it's the
The
Henniggers.
Henniggers.
Yeah, okay, I can see that because like the way it like stops the movement or whatever because they're so like especially someone like Macaulay with the dance fighting and stuff.
Mm.
I can see that.
Yeah, it crowds you in. It doesn't let you kind of brute force your way through. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
makes sense.
I like that.
Um,
It's also like yeah, gardens are so antithetical to dumb fighting bullshit. Like they don't
mm,
grow things; they they chop them down.
yeah, yeah. We got Haunt of the Heron, who told us about the Osseous Rain, which is a kind of sudden storm which calcifies things, turning things to bone, almost like acidic rain, but instead of burning what it touches, it bonifies it, kind of preventing the ability for things to heal properly. Like if you get hit by it, your skin like calcifies. The my thought here was either the dogs or the ghouls, right? Like, oh, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Tashlit maybe is also potentially a good answer.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it fe- I kind of the ghouls were my initial thought, and I think I'm going to land on them because like it feels like they're the ones who'd be the most fucked by their ability to regenerate being heavily impacted. As well as like yeah, I don't know. It just gave me vibes of fucking with the ghouls specifically.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing that I'd argue against that is like the other side of it is how it calcifies and like bonifies everything, and there's a lot of bone skeleton imagery associated with the ghouls, so that's almost aligning with them on that angle.
Mm, mm.
Like similarly, that's why it can't be the dog tags because they'd love to chew on all the bones. But that said, I don't really have a better answer than yours. All I have, I'm not bringing anything to the table on this one. I'm just bringing your stuff down and criticizing it.
Thanks. All right,
Um,
well, we've got the answer here from Heron. The answer
yeah.
is
Oh, give
oh,
me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
okay.
I want to try and throw some spaghetti at the wall. Yeah,
Uh,
Miles Sutton.
well, that's incorrect. The
Yeah.
answer is Durachet, with the thought of
Damn.
the goal of the Osseous Rain is to be too costly to deal with, right? Like you can probably beat it, but it's just meant to be making you pay permanent prices, I guess. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
yeah, so it's not worth dealing with, I guess, is the response. Um, we got Beard of Valor talking about the deeper dig, which was quite a long answer. So I'll summarize it very
Yeah.
quickly here by just saying it
Sorry,
forces.
can I just offer an alternate pitch for a way to fight Derosha?
Yeah, yeah.
Hear me out on this one. Just some sort of incarnate ritual, whatever, that involves playing Beat Saber, because
Mhm.
Derosha's whole thing is that like everyone's too scared of her, right? And like she's
Right,
so
right.
well
So it would
poised,
make her look
and
ridiculous.
yeah,
Yeah, I
nobody
see.
looks cool playing Beat Saber. So the
Yeah, yeah,
way
yeah,
to cripple Derosha is just to make her play Beat Saber for a bit, and then everyone will be like,
yeah.
"Oh, she's just an idiot."
Yeah, no, it's an incarnate ritual which forces you to post embarrassing tweets on your timeline, and yeah, that ruins your self image. um, but yeah, so the deeper dig by Beard of Valor, it's a place which, to sum it up very briefly, like effectively forces you to confront your self image, and if your gap between your perception of yourself and the actually what you're like, is too big, then you get fucked. And the specific example given was Ellen from a few years ago. Ellen realizing how terrible they are would get ruined, which I thought was funny. I mean, and this is kind of ridiculous, but this one felt to me. I mean, okay, a lot of practitioners will be fucked over by by being forced to confront the accuracy of their self image. But the one that thought came to mind for me was Verona's dad. Is that ridiculous? I mean, he's not a practitioner, obviously, but I just think it would be so perfectly tailored to fuck with him.
Yeah, no, I mean he's had trouble with self awareness in the past.
Yes.
One or two moments I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that answer. I went with Charles just
Yeah.
because
Yeah. No, that's good.
living up to your own values feels like something Charles has, let's say, a spotty record.
Uh,
At
so I don't think Phalanx is in our Discord. I don't think we've actually gotten the answer, but this probably is the answer. Eastern. I mean, it feels perfect, right? Like it's got to be Eastern.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll go
I
with
think
Easton.
I think we can agree. I don't know if we've got the correct answer or not, but
I
I'm
mean,
pretty sure it's Eastern.
the whole point of the deeper dig is to make yourself coup. Who
Yeah.
better to point that at than Easton?
um, Lurking Beluga gave us the poplar fuzz, which is a grass that kind of takes over an area, making spiritually inhospitable places more spiritually viable, and then kind of infecting them and growing from there. I don't know. I was trying to think like who works with places that are spiritually inhospitable and would be kind of fucked over by the spiritual vibe. I didn't really have a good answer. It also
My
like
oh, sorry.
corrupted a power base that can be kind of corrupted, which gave me Musser vibes again, but also maybe Wonder Canned. I'm just going to put it out there again. I don't know.
My only thought was Sin.
Mm.
That was as close as an answer as I had.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. That makes a
just
lot of
because of the
sense.
way that she pulls from the ambient spirits in the area to power up her lasers.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
remember how she worked. Actually,
yeah. No,
no,
she powers
I,
up lasers.
I remember explicitly being told by Wildbow and the rest of the chat that I'd misunderstood how she worked at the time, and I never went back and corrected that. So I'm just
No,
gonna.
yeah.
She had
She's like
lasers that were above her head.
Cyclops. She's
Yeah.
like the X-Men Cyclops, but instead of being powered by mutant genes, they're powered by ambient spirits. That's how it works.
All right. Cool. Cool.
But yeah,
Glad
so
I got
this
there
one has an
eventually.
answer, and the answer is I'm clicking. Oh, wait, hold on. It's hidden behind Rot 13. Just give me a second.
Oh shit! Wait, didn't you say you were clicking on the spoiler tag too? This is a fucking two-factor authentication.
Yeah, I know. I clicked on the spoiler tag, and then behind the spoiler tag was Rot 13. Oh, of course. It's fucking with Matt. Of course, it's fucking with Matt.
Oh yeah,
That
I know.
makes a
I
lot of
see
sense. For
that.
the same reason as Sin.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Shit. That was pretty obvious in hindsight.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Okay.
And then we had one final answer from Vice Versa. And this again is just a delightfully funny other.
Other. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Mrs. Manners, who is a kind of stern British nanny that corrects improper behavior, basically. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it. As you start reading it, my first thought was Verona because it was a
Yes,
tough
for sure.
critical parent.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
the more I read, the more I shifted. My guess would be like the Teds, Liberty and or America. Just because the more Miss Manners was explained, the more I was like, oh, this seems specifically designed to fuck with goblins or people who like
Mm,
are trying to express themselves in non-traditional
yeah,
ways,
yeah.
and that just reeked of goblin practitioners to me.
Yeah, no, I love the thought of the Teds. My gut went to Verona as well, and until I saw your answer, I didn't think of the Teds. So I'm just going to say Verona. But I do think the Teds are a very good answer there.
Yeah. Yeah. Avery with her tattoos is another is
Hmm?
another one. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just trying to think of anyone else who rocks like a really alternative sort of style.
Nora? Is Nora
Yeah.
alt enough?
Yeah, I think she would be.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
Cool.
great discussion question answers. This was a fun one because it was both a game but also like a lot of fun other creation, which is always
Yeah.
very fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this.
Um, Now, as for our new discussion question, Elliot, it's very simple. What type of other is your cat?
Should
Your
we just say
cat.
pet?
Well,
Like,
yeah, we could.
let's
Yeah,
not leave
sure.
dog
All right.
people, and we might even have some bird people listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't know the depths of depravity that we have in our listenership. So
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Leave a picture of your pet, I guess, and a description about their what type of other they are.
yeah, what type of other is your pet,
Yeah.
comma, secretly? You gotta because
Secretly.
you
Yeah.
gotta be
Yeah. Well.
guessing.
Yeah.
If
Of
your
course.
pet
You
is an
wouldn't know.
actual other, we
Yeah.
don't wanna hear like, if you've got a pet cherry pop, don't tell
Yeah.
us about that,
Doesn't
we don't
count.
care.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, yeah, you can leave your answers to that discussion question in our discussion thread, which will be linked in the show notes down below. So get onto that. You can also find the links to our Pale Predictor form where you can leave your predictions about where you think the story is going to go next. So do that by following the links in the show notes.
Yep, we are also on the Twitter. Memes going out there,
Every
quote
single
unquote, every
day.
day.
Hell yeah. So come check them out. A new fresh meme for you every single day. While you're checking out things on the internet, why not check out this great little website called doofmedia.com. It's got all kinds of cool podcasts on there. This is one of them, and there's others, as well as just other cool activities like fan art contests and little browser-based games that you can play. If you find them, they're pretty hard to find.
It's time for the scheduled browser-based games blog. Yeah, don't forget we also have a Patreon as well. That's how we fund things like the website and all the games on it,
Yep.
as well as the fan art contest. This is why the patrons get to vote, because it's their money going as the prize to the winner.
Yes, exactly right. So yeah, patreon.com/doofmedia for that. And while you're on Patreon, of course, make sure you check out patreon.com/wildbow. You can give him some money, and in exchange, he might send you a mysterious cat.
Please don't. I'm unsubscribing.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, have a good day, everyone. Bye.
See ya.